You could take that. You take that piano out. You- yeah, yeah. Because I can bring that chord Sunday and remember to. All right. Glad to have you all here. Tune me down a little bit, Deo. The mic is a little bit loud. If you want to open your Bibles, we're going to be in Acts chapter 10. We're going to be reading out of verses 34. We're going to read out of a few verses beginning at 34. But first, I want to ask you guys a question. And I want to get specific with us Indians. What makes us Indian? And you just think about that. Don't shout out an answer. Don't, shout out answers like, because we make fry bread or because we got dance regalia. I'm talking about what truly makes us Indian. Because there are other populations that have similar events. If you call it a powwow is unique to Native Americans, but it's ceremonies like that are not unique to our population. So what makes us Indian? What makes you Indian? And let's take that a step further. What makes you Christian? Not just the Christmas season, right? As we see here, we're going to be putting up the tree. You guys can't see it online, but there's a lot of commotion going on back here because we're getting our decorations around, even though the Atokni household was officially in Christmas season, November 1st, right after Halloween. Like 12:01, November 1st, we were already putting the Christmas decorations up. We're just now getting around to it here at church. But it's not because of Christmas season or buying presents or any of that. It's because we believe in something, right? And you could take that, like I said, further with Native because we believe a certain way. There in chapter 10, verse 34 of Acts, it says, "Then Peter began to speak. Now I really understand that God doesn't show favoritism, but in every nation the person who fears him and does righteousness is acceptable to him." And he goes on to explain even further. He says he sent the message to the Israelites proclaiming the good news of peace through Jesus Christ. He is the Lord. He is Lord of all. You know the events that took place throughout Judea, beginning from Galilee after the baptism that John preached, how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, and how he went about doing good and healing all who were under the tyranny of the devil, because God was with him. We ourselves are witnesses of everything he did in both in both the Judean country and in Jerusalem. Yet they killed him by hanging him on a tree. God raised up this man on the third day and permitted him to be seen, not by all the people, but by us, witnesses appointed beforehand by God, who ate and drank with him after he rose from the dead. He commanded us to preach to the people and to solemnly testify that he is the one anointed by God to be the judge of the living and the dead. All the prophets testified about him. Through his name, everyone who believes in him will receive forgiveness of sins. You see, what Peter is trying to preach, he's essentially preaching here. This is a message that he is wanting to give to the people that are listening, but also to us today, because that's one of the great things about this book, is that it's been handed down generation, much like our Indian people have customs and tradition handed down generation after generation after generation. That those customs and ceremonies and all that, we as Indian people probably are facing a lot of struggle with those things, right? Because one, if you're a Christian, it directly conflicts with some of the beliefs out there in the world. But that your traditional ways can also coincide with believing in God, because he gave us those ways. He gave us those good ways to take care of our people. And that's what I really want to, when we're asking what does it mean, or what really makes us Indian, it's our culture. It's our community. And that's what Peter is trying to show the people here. He said it, basically what he's describing is what we go through every single day, every single year, as a sort of a play that we produce right here in church and churches across America. And that's what they put up in like Christmas lights and Christmas decorations, whatever. They call it a nativity scene, right? And what it's telling is that story of the birth of Christ, that Christmas story. That what Peter was talking about was prophesied years and years and years ago. But it's not simply that it happened, because it happened. It's true. It's everything that is in this Bible is true. There are actual other accounts of these things happening, the miracles and everything. They all line up. So it's not that it didn't happen. And that's not what makes us Christians. That's not even what makes us, when we're talking about those certain things as a native people, that's not what makes us native, is that we take part in those things and all that. It's what Peter is trying to get out of the people here. It's that we believe in those things. It's a belief that he sent his son to die for us. It's a belief that to prove that he was king and conqueror, that he rose again, to prove that not even death could conquer him. Not even death was the end of him. In fact, he's still living on today. And that's what is Peter is really trying to show, is that stuff that makes us Christians. Like when we're talking about natives, that stuff that makes us native, that we go around and we one of the things that native people do is that we like to adopt and bring in those family, even though we're not blood related. We might have a significant friend, a significant community member or whatever, and we take them on as uncle, as auntie, as niece or nephew, as brother even, right? And we actually adopt them. Kind of like what Jesus has done for us here and shows us in the Bible and in other passages. He says we've been grafted in. And you guys know what that means. We went over it probably a few years ago now, that grafting. It's not that we're originally a part of the segment that was delivered by God from Pharaoh and all that stuff. But because we've been given that opportunity, we've been grafted in, you see. And some of those people that we take on as uncle, as a native, they're not always particularly native, right? But they've done something for us. They've either kept up our customs on their own. They've given us ways, that we could have followed, or protected us in some way, helped us along the way, something like that. And we've taken them on as family members, and then we start sharing our customs and our culture with them. We give them, Indian words. We tell them secrets, right? We tell them the secrets, like, hey, if somebody's calling you this is what it really means, and it's not a good thing. We let them in on the culture. We should handle that same. We should handle it the same way when we're Christian, because that's what he's trying to show here, is that before then there was a sense that, and even us native people are guilty of this, that no one else can be in on this. No one else can join the family. And as Christians, we get in sort of a rut like that, because we put our guard up immediately. Oh, well, did you pass the test? Did you pass, did you go through all these rituals, or you studying your Bible every day? You doing all that type of stuff? And we start becoming judges then. And that's not what Jesus has called us to do. He didn't call us to be judges. He told us actually to love one another. And what that love means is to take care of one another, to look out for one another. It doesn't mean judge them. There are times that we have to give them advice, right? There are times that we should be able to help them understand things a little bit more clear if they're going down the wrong path, or if they're exhibiting behavior that probably isn't what's the word, congruent, right, with the group, right? Yeah, you probably don't need to be saying those things or anything. One real good example is gossip. When people start talking about other people as Christians, we shouldn't admonish them right away. Hey, you shouldn't be talking about them like that. We should be examples, and we should either try to steer the conversation somewhere else, or give actual biblical insight on those conversations. We should actually refer to what we've been taught and where we're brought up, like if we're brought up in a native home, right? And somebody starts doing something that's not native, right? We are more than apt to tell them, hey, that's probably not the best way to handle these things. Hey, this is how we handle these things when this is what my uncle told me, this is what my grandpa told me, or any of that type of stuff. And that's what Peter is trying to show here. It's not that he gives a recount of Jesus' life, real short, right? He talks about when he was prophesied and all that stuff. But he's saying we believe in it, and believing in it is a whole different attitude. It's a whole different character. It's a whole different way of doing something, of achieving something. And that's something that I thought was real powerful, real unique, because we as Indian people know how to be Indian. If you're Indian, you know how to be Indian. Sometimes I feel like us Christians, we don't always know how to be Christian. And saying it's a real easy way out. Well, you should act like Jesus. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Look at Jesus, just the foundation. He believed that his Father sent him on a mission. He believed it with all of his heart. He struggled with it. He struggled with what it was going to mean at the end. That's why he said, if this cup can be taken away from me, do so. But if not, then help me with it. Give me the strength to be able to accomplish that. And that's how we should look at life, is that we believe that God sent his son to die for us, and he really meant it. He rose again and all that, but he really meant it in that we should be preaching and teaching just like Jesus did. We should be loving all people. When there are Pharisees that come against us, when there are people that are righteous in their own mind, right? We shouldn't treat them with disrespect, get mad at them, beat them down or anything like that. Use our word. Use what we've been taught to be able to battle them, because that's a spiritual battle, and they need to be saved as well. Those individuals that are going down the wrong path and trying to correct us or tell us that we're not of God or anything like that, those are those judges that I was talking about. And sometimes we can get on that side, but we need to go back to what we've been taught and what we believe in. Not so much church and ceremony and rituals and all that. That's exactly what Jesus was against, because it was becoming a business and something so far off, so far removed, that he was able to go literally in the church and say, you know what? This isn't right. And he started flipping over the table. He started doing all kinds of stuff. He started destroying that. And that's what he was saying, the examples and all that. That's what he was telling everybody. This isn't church. This isn't what God had ordained. In fact, you guys have taken everything out of it, and you guys are doing something else with it. It needs to get back to the word. It needs to get back to that belief that God will take care of us, that God will stand us up. He's going to give us the strength to be able to. That's what he was talking about again in 41. When those that sat with him and actually drank with him and ate with him, he was real. And they, some of them we see, what is it? The doubting one, where maybe he had a problem with that, but he even believed. And it took a little bit more for him, but he believed. And that's what it means, that community, that culture, that you actually believe in it. You believe. And so it's a nice time, shopping around for Christmas gifts and all that, if you're able to, and everything. and a nice time to remember that, you know, God sent his son for us to accomplish a mission we couldn't accomplish for ourselves. But it's the belief that is the central part of that relationship, that you believe that he did this and that he has a better path. He has a path for you, even to be able to walk and to be able to be taken care of. And so I just thought that was good. Something. Any comments, questions, rude remarks?
I think like it's the fruit, right? Like believing and everything leads to that. So like when you asked at the beginning, what does it mean to be, native? What's it mean to be Indian? My thought was prevail, right? Prosper. Our people, our ancestors, everything that they went through, so that we're able to sit here today. And then you asked us to relate that to being a Christian. Well, it's the same thing, right? To prevail not just over death, but to prevail in this life through all the difficulties through God. And it comes through that belief that is being talked about here, what you're talking about. But there's the fruit, and that's what you're talking about too. Is what do you do with it now that you believe? When we're Indian, okay, you can go dance, you can go, but I mean, we see. I just went over culture in school, teaching it, right? And one of the aspects is how culture changes. And so I touched on, how a lot of people dance for money now. They're not
Yep.
dancing because of what you're actually supposed to dance for. We have, so and so's going to North Dakota or whatever, and they get mad because they placed third. They get mad because they didn't place it on. I'm like, you danced. What are you mad about? We have posting videos for likes or for views on YouTube, posting your regalia just so you look musty and keen, or how they change songs now. They sing about women and all that stuff. It's like, it changes. So, yeah, you're Indian, but what's the fruit, right? What's the fruit of it? And we strive to make our ancestors proud. I think about those 600 that made it, right? Our Pawnee that made
Yep.
it. Live for them and make sure what they did wasn't in vain. It's the same with our faith. Live for what Jesus did. Live for those that are writing in Scripture right now, that are talking to us, helping us where we're at now. It's the same thing. What's the fruit? When you believe, there's going to be fruit. It's either going to be good fruit or bad fruit. And I think that's what you're talking about too, is what is produced from it. That's what really tells you. You're in it. There's going to be good produced
Yep.
in it.
Well, and to give another comparison on the Christian side, some might, because statistics are out there about how to judge whether a church is doing well or not, right? And if we get caught up in that as Christians, whether or not we're reaching 1,000 people or 2 people or anything like that, what are we doing it for? Are we just doing it for the views, or the people in church and all that? No, that's not what he is focusing on here, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Is exactly when you're thinking about culture, when you're thinking about community and who you really are. That's where it comes down to, is that your belief in whether or not God has a path for you. And if you want to take that further to your native beliefs, right? Because he tells us to look out for the future generations and all that lines up with that. But what doesn't line up with it is kind of what you said with contests and all that type of stuff. But on the Christian side, how many people you're reaching and everything. What's his name? Billy Graham would have thousands, tens of thousands of people listening to him, and he was a good preacher and whatnot. But if you look, and yeah, he had the ones the coming to the front and everything like that, but that happened across America. What happened to those people? Our country is in dire need of another those type of revivals. You could talk about all those numbers and all those, but exactly what you're talking about. Where is, and not saying Billy Graham was not a good minister or preacher or anything. Like, he did his job. Where's everybody else?
Like those 6 sons did their job to get here so we can have a life. Well, what are we doing with that?
Exactly. That is exactly what are we doing as Christian? What does it really mean to be a Christian, to be going out there on the battlefield and all that? Well, that's what he's talking about. Believe and do what God told you to do. Do what God has called you to do. Get on that straight and narrow and work for him. So all the prophets testify about him through his name. Who everyone believes in him will receive forgiveness of sins. That's the essential part of it, is that you believe in him. And that's what we try to preach week in, week out, is that you have to have that relationship with him. Because another part, I always, it was a really good reminder. My wife and my sister-in-law, they got in a picture with me, not by choice. I was out there streaming. I had my buddy there. We was commentating for a game. And one of the photographer buddies that I had, he took a picture of us. It wasn't that I wasn't ready, but I knew that I could be taking a picture, so I wasn't like doing anything crazy, except, my wife was leaning back and not in a great pose. And then my sister-in-law also commented on the picture, said, "Man, you couldn't give us a second to pose?" I'm like, you know what? It's a good reminder, because what happens when we hear that trumpet call? You don't have time. You don't have time. You better be caught in somewhere that you want to be caught. And that's exactly what he's talking about. Always be ready and be willing to do the work of God and be on that battlefield, because when he calls us home, we better be okay with it. You better have it situated in your heart, because you don't get a second chance then. You don't get a third or fourth chance if you've already been preached to, if you've already been in church, you already been given that invitation at revival, at Bible study, at church camp, or anything like that. Once we hear that, it's time to go. And that's exactly what he's preaching there, is that Peter was trying to emphasize to the people. It's not about all these things that you do and all these glorious things and trying to get glory for yourself or anything. It's about a relationship with Jesus Christ and whether or not you have one. So, any other comments, questions, rude remarks? Hey. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're going to go into our time of prayer, and we'll be back here. I think we have to sort out something too, right? If any of you guys want to have, you guys got kids that you guys want to send as volunteers for our Christmas play. Did we decide if we're doing that Sunday? Yeah, so Sunday, short notice, we're going to be doing our Christmas program. If you want to take part, get a hold of us, leave a comment, get a hold of one of us here at the church, and we'll get that around and arranged in the evening time, right? Yeah. 6 o'clock. We'll say 6 o'clock. So we'll be back Sunday, 10 o'clock, Sunday school, 11 o'clock, worship service, and then 6 o'clock we'll have our Christmas program this weekend. If you're viewing this at another time, it's the Sunday immediately afterwards, and you'll see it anyways. So until next time, we'll see you later.